Hi, I'm Joy.
Hi, I'm Lorraine.
And this is Girlish Gurus. And Lorraine, why are we here?
We're here to talk about mid-lifestyle topics for women who are 45 and older to help you live your best, healthiest, and most fulfilled life. We're also going to have lots of fun along the way.
Be sure to stick around until the end for fun announcements and goodies you won't want to miss.
So let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of Girlish Gurus. I'm Joy.
And I'm Lorraine.
Lorraine, what are we talking about today?
Well, today's conversation is a deeply important one, and it may be a very emotional one for many of our listeners. We're joined by Tania Khazaal, whose work focuses on healing strained and estranged relationships between parents and their adult children. This is not about blame, shame, or choosing sides. It's about understanding human behavior, emotional pain, and how we can show up with steadiness, clarity, and integrity. Tania brings a unique perspective grounded in psychology, neuroscience, lived experience, and years of working with families navigating disconnection and repair. This conversation is about emotional maturity, accountability with compassion, and the possibility of healing regardless of the outcome. Welcome, Tania.
Welcome.
Thank you. What a beautiful introduction, too.
I'm so happy you're here. Just before we hopped on, I shared that I've been following you on Instagram for several months with very emotional posts that you have included and that I share with people that I know. But Joy, I think, wanted to get started with a question specifically for you as we jump into the episode.
So this is a topic that really has come onto my radar as of late. I think Lorraine and I have talked about this a fair amount. You're now starting to see it on mainstream media. And I'm just very, very curious about all of the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of how you deal with this. I mean, it's just becoming such an issue, it seems like. So your work is very clear about what it is not. And this I really appreciate. It's not shaming or blaming or encouraging victimhood, which I think is very important. Okay. Why is it so important, though, if you can explain for us, to set those boundaries so explicitly?
So first, I don't like using the term boundaries because that's one of the words that's used so loosely in society right now to build walls versus I like to look at boundaries as like standards. It's a level of self-respect. I think what's happening is people are recognizing this level. There's an uptake of empowerment and healthy standards and all of that. But what's happening is that language is also being formed to anything that is uncomfortable is likely not healthy for me. It's either toxic or requires these boundaries. And so why I talk about it is because there is no blame or shame on either side. Now, obviously, I'm not speaking to the real victims of abuse in those situations,
right?
But the moment you're blaming someone, you're the victim, they're the villain. So it's like in every situation, it's like I'm a victim, which allows me to stay stuck, which allows me to keep myself in this victimhood that doesn't allow me to truly live a healthier and happier life. Meanwhile, someone else is the villain in my story. And the reason why I feel the way that I feel is because someone else is doing it to me. And so there's nothing healthy about that. And that's why there's also no shame, because it's not about painting our imperfect parents as villains, right? Or even ourselves. Like, we're not the villain in every story. We're learning as we're navigating life. And of course, there's some terrible people in the world. That's not what I'm referring to. But being stuck in either a victim or villain mentality where you're blaming and shaming people, it's this part of society that I see today where it needs an enemy to point their fingers at in order for us to feel better, right? Think about the increase of ideologies, the increase of labels, the increase of everything in order to get that sense of belonging. And now it's becoming more of, if I'm not 100% feeling like I'm accepted as I am, 100% in alignment in my belief system, 100% in alignment with the values, all of that, then you're probably not healthy for me. And we're seeing the cutoff culture that we're seeing now.
I just want to make sure we're clear for our audience. So it's okay to have a little personal discomfort, right?
Well, it's healthy. It's necessary in order to grow. And I think what's happening is we're building a society that's so fragile now because we are not allowed to sit in that discomfort. And that's the problem, right? When you build emotional resilience, it's like, oh, that's challenging. I got to navigate it. Oh, that's making me feel uncomfortable. I got some work internally that I have to do. And now, once again, there's obviously situations that you could just completely remove yourself from for safety reasons. But if that's not the case, then usually you have to stick it through in order to become stronger on the other side. The problem is people no longer want to do that. And so they'd rather stay exactly where they are, continue that victimhood and not deal with anything uncomfortable. And then what look around society and wonder why it's so fragile.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty powerful.
So you've actually brought together psychology, neuroscience, moral frameworks, and lived experience as an estranged child. So how did your personal experience kind of guide you on this approach that you work differently than most like standard approaches or traditional approaches?
Um, I've had a passion for psychology and neuroscience since I was like 19, literally for like almost 2 decades ago. And that's just, I think it was part of my own healing process in terms of trying to navigate the hardships that I went through in my childhood, my sense of identity and who I was and where I came from and reprogramming my mind and all that. So when I really started to understand that I wasn't a victim of what happened to me. It was an experience that I had to be able to work through and stop attaching my sense of worth, my sense of confidence, my sense of self in every way, shape, or form, especially as a female, to stop attaching that to the experience that I experienced when I was younger. And that's
Yeah.
where the psychology and neuroscience helped me so much. And it's not from just like a typical textbook. Like it was me reading my way through life to really navigate that and start shifting my way of thinking. And I think the reason why it helped me is because it's very rooted in the emotional healing component. And that's the part that I find not many people do talk about, or so I wouldn't even say just experienced. I think I naturally have this intuitive understanding of the emotional healing that's needed because when I was the estranged child, right? So when I talk about lived experience, I understand the child's perspective completely. When you feel unseen, your emotional needs are not met. Um, you feel like your parent is narcissistic, which is another label that I feel is used too loosely. Sometimes the best thing to do because you feel like you have no control over the situation and you can't control someone else's behavior. So the only thing you can control is choosing the distance. And so I did that exact same thing in the name of protecting my peace, in the name of, my own healing. But really, what that was protecting my pain. And because I was protecting my pain, I was not actually processing the emotions and the feelings and the unmet needs that I needed to process in order to help me get to the other side. And so through this journey, I learned that after I realized that I'm not feeling that much better. Okay, yes, I feel more peace not talking to my mom right now,
Mhm.
but am I really at peace or is it because I'm away from the triggers? Right, the things that were activating me. So when I started to realize how can I get myself to a point where I'm no longer triggered by her behavior, whether or not she changes towards me and how she handles situations with me. And that is when I really dove into the emotional healing component and understand the psychology and neuroscience to such a depth that I was like, it's a me problem. It's not a her problem. She did the best she can with
Wow.
what she was doing. And I have to be able to work on not being activated by someone else's behavior. And when I really got to that point, she didn't change, but I just no longer reacted to the way that she was. And that's where I really come in the situation where it's like, you are justified for wanting to cut off and take care of yourself and find yourself and do all of that. But I can tell you from experience, there's no real healing until you recognize that I have to be able to work through whatever's happening in me internally to be able to be around that same person without expecting them to change in order for me to change.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen many of your posts about your mom. So how did you navigate that with your mom? I know that you said you came out on the other side. I don't even know how to word it. Not that you were you like more accepting? Were you I like you said
Yeah,
it's
I
you
mean, it was
changing.
it was it was a slower process. To be honest with you, is my dad was kind of a bit of a mediator because I was close with my dad, and unfortunately did affect our relationship for a little while too. But I think I just got to the point that I was like, okay, but then what? So how I really did it, I have a three-step framework that I typically teach. It's step one is where, and you guys probably hear me talk a lot about the therapy culture, and I think that it feeds a big part of what we're seeing
Yeah.
now. And I think therapy does an incredible job in stage one. Okay. So I walk through 3 stages. Stage one, amazing. It's good at uncovering the wounds, the villains of your story, what made you feel that way, what tell me about the experience, and you start recognizing where these triggers originated from. And I think that that's important part to the healing process. It really is. And like I said, that's where therapy comes in. And it's like it's uncovering all these things that you attach to your self-worth, to your identity, to who you are, which is so important. The problem is this is often where it leaves you. And then no wonder why we see people cutting off their family and everything, because now they're building, because you're unloading that, you're building this anger, this resentment, this shame, this blame game, because you've recognized if this person didn't do that to me, I wouldn't be feeling this way about myself. And so you're naturally going to start to build that towards them. And I did the same thing. But when you get into stage two, it's so incredibly important to move it from, okay, now I'm going to remove myself completely from this situation and the relationship that we have, and I want to rewrite their story.
Hmm.
And when you start rewriting someone's story, because we often learn about rewriting our story, you cannot rewrite your own story before you rewrite the other person's story that's the villain in your story. And you have to do that because the understanding and the compassion that comes out for that other person is so important. So with my mother, when I started to rewrite her story, I was like, okay, my mother, just without too much context, I was a middle child. I had a younger brother. I was very unseen by, my sister had health issues. She's only 2 years older than me. She got a lot of the attention. So my mother was kind of very heavily focused on my sister, and I was just kind of the outcast. I started working really young. And then my mom, I remember on my 15th birthday, didn't buy me a birthday gift, didn't get me a cake. 9 days later was my sister's. She got one. So you can imagine how I felt at that point. And so this kind of started to compound. And that's why I say it doesn't mean that you're not justified. These are things that should not
Right.
happen. You're right, but they did. And
Right.
that's just the reality of it. When I rewrote her story, I was like, okay, let's talk about my mom's story. I'm going to completely remove myself. She's another person. This is her first life on earth, too. And I was like, she was the 15th out of 16 siblings, the second youngest.
Wow.
16 siblings. Her dad died when she was 3. Her mother definitely unintentionally neglected her in so many ways. So she had to learn to be a grown up way too young, take care of herself, be in survival mode. She was married by the time she was 18. She ended up getting a sickness and forced into retirement by the time she was 33. She had kids young. She was in an abusive marriage. All of these things that I was like, I want to cry for her right now. To her, she did an incredible job with her children compared to how her childhood was. Was it
Hmm.
perfect? Did she make mistakes? Absolutely. But that took me from the anger and resentment that I was holding towards her and brought me into a level of understanding and compassion that I was like, so I'm expecting her to have the same level of understanding and tools and everything that I have now processed just because you're right, the tools are available and everything, but it doesn't mean that everyone comes to that level of readiness for that kind of healing to happen. And so I felt like our roles kind of switched into I became the mother and I saw her as the wounded child.
Hmm.
And so when you
Wow.
have that, you can't get mad at their behavior, just like you would with a young child, where you're understanding their tantrums and their behaviors and everything. You have a different kind of patience because you're like, they're learning
They're
and they're
kids.
young. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
how I took it, which took me into stage 3, which was now rewriting my story and realizing that all the perceptions of self that I had based on my experience with my mom had nothing to do with me and everything to do with her lens.
Right. Wow.
That's
Yeah.
I know it's
that's
pretty
heavy.
profound sometimes when you're hearing it for the first time
Yeah.
because it's like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this is why I speak so much about therapy and the destruction of therapy because it keeps you stuck in that stage 1, which is a very scary place. And a lot of people build up so much anger and resentment in that place.
Yeah. And a little bit further into the podcast, I want to jump into that where you talk about the therapy part of this whole thing and how it actually contributes to the estrangement rather than healing it, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think
but
it's easy to see how that could happen. That's a
yeah,
slippery slope. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
But it's
Wow.
such an important part of the healing journey. The problem is there's no path to the repair part that's often given. Usually the mechanisms that you're giving are meditation, cognitive behavior therapy, EDMR, EFT, like tapping, that kind of stuff, which is really good to calm the nervous system when you're activated. But when it ends there, that's the problem that we're seeing in society, in my
yeah,
opinion.
So every family has difficulties. Every family has ups and downs. All relationships typically have ups and downs. My father just passed away in November, and he was a difficult guy for
My
in his
condolences.
own way. So I could not be really close with him just, to protect myself, like you say. But I've fallen down in the hole, Lorraine.
No, but
I
I
said
think
it.
that that's important because this is a perfect example of the dynamic that's almost happening in every household because you're right. A lot of our parents are difficult to deal with. And you're just like, oh, I swear I can help you. Why don't you want the help? But the reality is they're stuck in their own, pardon my
Situation.
French, their own shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you feel bad that you cannot live a healthier, happier life and you choose to be that way. So it's that level of compassion that I'm trying to bring out of people more to say, instead of having a reaction to their every reaction and their mood and all of that, it's more just feeling sad that that's the way that they choose to live and the way that they only know how to live.
Right. When he was dying, I told him, I said, I know you did the best you could with what you were given. He was the middle of 11 kids. And I also think he had undiagnosed neurodivergent issues and a lot of mental health issues. And so that affected him as a child. And, there's a lot involved there. And one of the things that he was never really able to do, and what is very hard for a person to do in general, is be self aware and look at yourself and excavate through that personal, all those layers of the things that have happened to you, your experiences and your expectations not being met, et cetera, et cetera. And then you wind up here. Anyway,
And
so
I find that a big reason why that happens is self-awareness requires a level of work that you have to do. And a lot of people are afraid to think that they could be a bad person. There's a lot of pride and ego, like, I don't want to think I'm a bad person. But a lot of people don't recognize that it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that there's growth that needs to happen. So people often avoid that level of self-awareness because it's uncomfortable to know that I might not be a great person. I'm not a bad person, but I'm not a great person. And so that's a lot of people, especially in my parents' generation. My dad is, I don't know how old your father is, but my dad's 73. And I find that in those generations, they're that much more attached to that pride and that sense of identity around that they cannot even fathom. Like, I don't even know if a part of the brain doesn't even know how to fathom that they might not be as great of a person as they want to convince themselves and that they can work through that. Once again, it doesn't make you a bad person. I can't sit here and say we're all incredible people. Every single one of us has mirror work to do where you got to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to work on in myself that I
Right.
can improve to become a bigger and better person? And I find that the older generations, of course, didn't have that capacity. We're in the generation now that has that capacity, but because we have that capacity, we're holding that same expectation on our parents. And that's also why we're seeing what we're
ooh,
seeing now.
ooh,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
powerful observation.
I am closer, and my husband, to your parents' generation. I'm 67, my husband's 71. And I agree with you. I mean, growing up, not that therapy wasn't available, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And I guess and I have my parents are both still alive. And I think that's even a generation that's even harder to.
Exactly.
So I think maybe as we go along, things get better and better. I
Well,
have three,
you've got new language, right? We're conscious,
right,
we're aware, we're able to put words to the emotions that we've been carrying. But we're overly using those words and creating such a sensitive and fragile generation. That's why if you were to look at your parents,
right.
they probably handle things that you wouldn't be able to fathom today. And now the
Exactly.
children are not able to fathom things that you've gone through. And so it's like they're getting weaker and weaker and weaker because we have the language and the support, and social media loves victimhood, and it
Right.
applauds victimhood. It
Yeah.
applauds all of these things, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
know I have three adult children, so this is a very good episode for me too. I'm going to do a lot of self-reflection and it'll help me with our relationships.
This does bring me to the next question. Okay.
Mhm.
So a lot of this is all right, the child ends up in therapy and estranged from their parents or whatever. But I have been seeing that a lot of parents are now looking for help on this front. And I'm sure you are interacting with parents from your
Mostly with parents.
okay. So I'm sure they're coming to you like confused and hurt and desperate to fix things quickly. What do
Yeah,
you want them to understand what might actually be happening beneath the surface of an
yeah.
estranged relationship?
I love that you asked that because you're right. I do primarily help the parents, and I think why it worked so well is because my primary job is to help the parent understand the child's language. What works, what doesn't work, what is going through the child's mind, and then how to create that steady, healthier conversation and connection with them. The biggest thing is I tell parents to not come from an emotional reaction. The moment you are over explaining, over giving, over justifying, you are pushing them further and further away. So a perfect example, what I see across the board, and Lorraine, this might totally ring a bell for you, but your child comes to you and says that I don't like how you did this. 99% of parents will say, oh my God, this is actually what I meant. And then you explain yourself. This is how I meant it. And it's natural because you're like, wait, if they understand my perspective, they're going to change their perspective of that situation. Most often than not, the children, and this is where the word narcissism comes in heavy, is like, well, now you just made it about you and completely removed me from that equation. And
Right.
now they're feeling completely unheard when all the child wants to hear literally is, I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. Don't even explain yourself. Wait for a future situation when it's a healthier foundation about that topic. Um, and just that alone, parents are like, oh, I could see all the times that I did that and actually fed into the issues that we're having. Meanwhile, the children they just want to feel heard. They just want to feel like their pain mattered more than your intention. Um, and so until they get to the emotional capacity and strength to be able to understand and have more compassion for you in that sense of this was your intention. And so this is why I'm really trying to help that. Okay, tough love for the children, like stop painting your parents as the victim, the villains, because then you're staying a victim and you're not actually growing. And in order to be truly healthy and happy, you need to be growing. But then I'm also talking to the parent and saying the reality is if you're going to lead first, because it's always one person leading by example, and sometimes it's the parent, sometimes it's the child, but I'm helping the parent say, this is how you can approach it and take that lead with your child, and the child will more and more likely build that safety back towards you and then open up conversation. I see it all the time. People who've been estranged 4, 6, 8, 10 years, reconnecting, having conversation with their kids, and then they're telling me that my child was like, oh my God, just the way that you're talking is different. Like, I'm so happy that you didn't have to try to justify it. I'm so happy that I was able to express myself with you trying to defend yourself. It's such a common foundation that you're seeing. And so I help the parents really understand the emotional language of that child. And that doesn't mean sitting in shame or anything like, oh, I wish I knew better. I should have done this. I'm going to apologize for every little thing that happened, because the reality is, no, the kid's got to toughen up a little bit too. But there's a way that
Yeah.
you can do that.
Love it. Yeah, that will be helpful.
I don't know about you, but I'm trying to listen very, very carefully to what Tanya's saying, and it makes me speechless, which
Yeah,
is
well,
rare.
and actually what you said, that it has to be more about their pain than your intention.
It does,
I want
because we
everybody
can
out there listening to that, because I've been guilty of that, honestly, right? I mean, my kid will say, one of them will say, I didn't appreciate that, or when you did that, or whatever, and I want to make it better. So, but this is what I meant. This is why, why did you take it that way, kind of thing. But it
Because
does
when
make,
you try to justify it, how the child interprets it is, it doesn't matter how I feel, your reason is more important,
yeah,
right?
Wait a
And
second.
that
Say that again.
the child typically, when you try to over justify yourself, the child typically says, how I feel doesn't matter because your excuse is bigger than that.
hmm,
Like your excuse matters more than how I feel.
right,
Mhm.
That's how they interpret it. And that's why I find it really funny when a lot of adult children do get upset at my content, because obviously on the front facing, I speak a lot about the parent. They have no idea on the back end, this is exactly what I'm telling them. So I'm helping them understand the child and what not to do. But that's a reality, right? Like even in the, like, go and pay attention to any relationship that you have now where someone says that you could have done something that upset them. Automatic response is defensiveness.
right,
Right. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
And if you just in any relationship took a pause and said, I'm not going to be defensive. Why? And I take it back to, I don't want to feel like I'm a bad person, that I did something bad, all of that. And we don't want to feel that way. Instead of saying, it's not about me right now. Tell me more about how you feel. Sorry, I made you feel that way. Kind of build that like And in marriages and everything, I see it across the board. And this is why I was saying I've studied relationships for so long because, and I think that's why I have such a wonderful relationship with my husband, is because when you understand that, it's not about sitting here and defending. And when you defend, you're like, I just want you to hear me, like just shut up and just listen to me. I just want to feel
Yeah.
heard. I want my feelings expressed. And just simply saying like, oh, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I didn't see it that way. I'm sorry. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, thank you. That's just literally, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
Just make space for that person. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of being
Yeah.
defensive because you don't want to feel like you tried to hurt someone, right? Which is natural. We're
Right.
humans. We don't want to hurt
Right.
people. So you try to explain your way through that, but you can still show that you don't want to hurt someone by saying, I'm sorry that I made you feel that way.
Yeah, but isn't it true that there are situations where you're in a relationship with another person who employs techniques like passive aggressivism and,
Oh, of
silent
course.
treatment
That's
type of stuff like that. And it's like,
100%. Yeah, so
mm,
this is where there's a difference between, it's not a black and white conversation. It's more of a building a type of character around how to navigate conversations. When someone is giving a silent treatment or being, unhealthy in certain ways, there's a level of standards that has to come up in a sense of I appreciate how you expressed yourself, and when you're ready to have a healthier and more respectful conversation, I'm ready for it. Like not engaging in that behavior, right? If someone's being aggressive, if someone's being rude, if someone's being disrespectful, they're swearing at you, they're giving you the silent treatment, there's a level of standards that still needs to happen. And I think that that's important. And what's not happening oftentimes is people don't know how to set standards without turning it more aggressive because their survival instincts are kicking in and they're bracing for heavy confrontation in that form of rejection, right?
Mm.
And then because we have such a fragile society, people are not very good at confrontational conversations where it is going to be a little bit of a healthy debate, I like to call it, because those are necessary in any relationship. But most often than not, people are like, I don't want to get into like an argument, which I like to call a healthy debate. Like, I don't want to get into an argument, so I'm just going to avoid it. I'm going to suppress myself, and it compounds until you either completely blow up or shut down and move
Mhm.
out.
And by doing that, they think they're protecting themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
mm.
So you often say that repair requires patience, not pressure. So
Yep.
can you explain why pressure, even when it comes from love, can unintentionally deepen the disconnection?
Well, if you're trying to approach a conversation, when you're using things like when there's a lot of emotion, and that's why I said don't come from an emotional reaction. When there's a
Hmm.
lot of emotion, the child feels that emotion and now they're feeling pressured and anxious of how to respond, and they typically just retract more. Versus when they feel like, okay, it's safe to approach it. I have to come from a calm, patient, grounded place. They feel that energy, right? Just like with anybody else, you could feel that. So when there's a lot of emotion behind your message or behind your intent, oh my God, I miss you so much. Please talk to me. Or, I'm sorry for everything that I've done to you. That's a lot of emotional weight for a child
Mm.
who's still trying to navigate the chaos of the world that they're trying to navigate. And so because of it, they're like, you know what, they seem to be desperate. Think the best example that I can compare it to, which is so strange, is an ex-boyfriend. Think about when you have like an ex-boyfriend who like if they broke up with you and you're like, "Oh my God, why'd they break up with me?" Like I'm obsessing over it and they never come back. They don't come back until one day you just wake up and you stop giving a crap about him and all of a sudden you hear from them. It's like that, and this has everything to do with like the quantum physics field and all of that, which is a whole other topic. But from an electromagnetic field perspective, if my energy is coming from a place of desperation, they are going to feel that energy. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
if they're across the world. The moment you stop operating from that energy, they also feel that. So it's like a natural pullback. It's like a magnet that almost comes right back to say that they're no longer in that state. So I have parents who are very much in that healthier state, and their children come back, and I have other parents that are like, they're still not coming, they're still not answering. I'm like, you got to work on the state that you are in order for them to energetically come back. Because if they come back and you're in this state, you are going to just push them further away and have that door closed
Mm.
again.
Hey Lorraine, don't forget, it's time for us to schedule our Lifeline screening appointments. They're 5 simple tests to help us keep on top of our heart and bone health which is important for women over 45.
Yes, Lifeline Screening has been the premier provider of preventative health screening for over 30 years. In that time, over 10 million people have had screenings to detect their risk of stroke, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic illnesses. Lifeline Screening can provide meaningful benefits for your body and mind, and that's why they're committed to delivering accurate results and recommendations that could give you a healthier advantage in your everyday life, such as early detection of serious conditions, prevention of disease progression, peace of mind so you can enjoy life, savings with more affordable screenings, and no insurance required.
Yep, and don't forget, by using the link in the show notes of this episode, you get a special offer available to Girlish Gurus listeners, so make sure and schedule your appointment.
Get peace of mind now. Here's to your good health.
I'm just taking all this in. I'm taking it in. Taking it in. Okay, so that leads me to my next question. A core theme of your work is accountability without shame or blame. Okay, here we go. What does healthy accountability actually look like in a parent-adult-child relationship? And I think this might also be true for other relationships, really. But can you give us a little bit of an explanation on that?
Yeah, so accountability, every single person has personal accountability. Like, we cannot sit here and blame everything that happens to us as someone else's fault. So typically what I love to tell people is, when you want to be accountable for your life, say, what can I do to change this situation and how can I change it? Don't say, why did this happen to me? Why did they do that to me? Why? Because that still keeps you in the victim mindset. It's like you're still putting the blame on somebody else versus being accountable and saying, okay, what could I do different? What could I have done that fed into this situation? What way did I show up that could have changed or helped it? How can I show up now? How could I have rewritten? Like, when you ask what or how questions, you realize that it really is in your power and you can control that. And so when it comes to accountability, it's same thing, that level of self-awareness, and say, I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, you are not perfect. And that's okay. Nobody is. And everybody has work to do. And so what's the first thing that I want to improve about myself and work on about myself? And a lot of the times I typically say, okay, think about things that people have said about you or to you. I don't like this. I don't like that. I think you're too much this. I think you're too this, that. There's probably some truth in there, and it sucks. And I'm not talking about the people who are overly critic or haters and stuff like that. We don't mind those, but I'm going to give you a perfect example. For a long time growing up, I was told that you're so aggressive in the way that you talk. Like, you just come off very aggressive, and I would get so angry, and I'd be like, I'm just passionate. Like, I'm so passionate about the way I talk. Like, how are you taking it as aggressive? Like, I'm not aggressive. And at some point I had to, like, and I was like, okay, well, my sister has said that, my mom has said that, I've heard it from an ex before. Like, and I don't want to think that, like, no, they're wrong. They're judging me wrong. Until I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay, maybe there's a better way that I can actually communicate. And then I went down the rabbit hole of communication, and hence why I learned so much on communication, that I was like, oh, there is ways that I could probably approach a conversation a little bit differently than as defensive and aggressive as I have been. And so, and I'm so grateful, because had I not learned all that communication skills, it wouldn't help me in so many different ways, from business to life to relationships. And so that's a good example of, there's probably some truth in the critique that you're receiving. And that's a good place to start saying, okay, I got some work to do. What do I have to start with? And that's accountability.
Yeah.
Everyone has got things that they need to work through, whether it's a better communicator, a better listener, navigating your activations, working through your own emotional healing, rewriting your story, working through your confidence, whatever it is, everybody has work to get better at. It could be money blocks for all I care, but there's always something that's keeping someone stuck that they can work through, because they are in charge of it. Like, you're either two people. You're looking in the mirror and you love who you are today, or you're looking in the mirror and saying, I've got work to do. Either way, it's your choice. It's up to you. It's nobody else's fault. If you look in the mirror and you feel like crap, you cannot sit here and blame anybody else. That's a you problem. You got to fix that. Maybe there's people's faults that why you were shaped this way, but it's your decision on what you do now. And if you love who you're looking at in the mirror, perfect. Thank every single person of your past to make you who you are today.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit now about healing.
Mhm.
As you define it, it doesn't mean erasing the past or demanding forgiveness. And for many parents, that's a hard shift. So, how do you help them build the capacity to hold compassion, responsibility, and forgiveness at the same time?
Are we talking from the parent's perspective or the child's?
I think it's from the parent's perspective, I would want to know. I mean, you address,
Well, for both, if it's from the parent's
yeah,
perspective, from a compassionate state, the same way I say that the child has to show compassion to the parent because they grew up in a different world, the parents need to do the same.
yeah,
Like to grow up in an environment where there's so much fast-paced social media and technology, where you have the comparison trap that's like stronger more than ever. You've got the emotional pressure of, the friends. Everything is just such a different world that is a lot and very overstimulating for a nervous system that's still developing. And when a parent doesn't understand that because they're also still operating from their perspective, they're missing the point of level of compassion to say, wow, they've got a different level of pressure than I probably ever experienced in my life. Both of you, very different pressure, right? Pressures
yeah,
of survival, working two jobs, whatever it is, but then also the pressure of the social influence and all of that is a lot too. And so I say that you have to come from a place of compassion and understanding to say, there's a whole new level of ideologies and sense of belonging that's happening around us where the younger and younger generations are really struggling to find who they are because of the information overload.
yeah,
And that is a lot, right? When you've got titles for everything, labels for everything, a name for literally everything, and even you got names to emotional language before they've even processed it in a nervous system level. And so I try to help the parents just kind of really say, they're growing up in a different world the same way we want them to show compassion that you grew up in a very different world. And when parents understand that children, everyone goes through an identity formation, which means like between like 18 to 22, you're like the peak of identity formation where I'm separate from my parents. And now I really want to just stand my ground and say, look at me, I'm independent. I don't need you kind of thing. Parents oftentimes panic during this stage and say they're completely lost, I'm losing my child. And it's like, no, this is where you got to kind of support them through the wave because they're trying to find themselves. And then they go through that like up until like the early 30s oftentimes, and why you typically will find by the time they're 30 they kind of ground themselves a little bit into who they are. And that's what it is. It's like you're navigating two completely different worlds, and both have to be able to say, I cannot expect you to speak, to think, to believe, to behave the same way as me when we have come from completely different worlds. Even oftentimes, I even hear children say, well, they have all the resources that I have available now, too. You're right, but they're at a different age. When you have technology presented to you at the age of 45 is not the same thing as when you're 10 years old, right?
no,
When you're all of these things play such a role. So it's just when I say compassion, it's always about rewriting the other story. What's the other story? What are they navigating? How does the world look like from their lens? And then remove yourself, because if we're always and we're a self-centered world, right? Everything's like very person-centered. We tend to lose the vision of not everything is about me. Most often than not, people are just projecting their pain and projecting their misery onto the world, but yet we take everything so personally.
yeah. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that, about the therapy part of that? Because you do on Instagram have many posts about the therapy now that's out there and how that affects these estrangement issues.
Yeah. So in the 70s, Carl Rogers introduced person-centered therapy, which is funny because I just mentioned that. I don't think he fed the way, but person-centered therapy started to become very much that my feelings are facts. And anyone who doesn't agree with my feelings is going against the facts. But then you fast forward to the raise in therapy culture just blew up from then. And for me, the reason why I think that it goes hand in hand with the estrangement going up is because, and that's not to say that there's not great therapists. I think that they're important for being able to understand why we feel the way that we feel. The problem is when you're having a session, first of all, anytime they're licensed, they have a certain protocol that they have to follow. They're not allowed to overshare, overgive, all of that stuff. So to me, it's already very limited because
Mhm.
they can't go and tell you, this is what I think is going to help your relationship. No, they're there one-on-one focused. A therapist is never going to take your family dynamic and try to give you the benefit of the doubt of the family. Their only job is one-to-one. When you have that, I only care about the person, but you have no context of everybody else, how are you really helping that one person? right? And
Yeah.
so when it's kind of like, well, what happened to you? Tell me more about that. That must have been really hard. It's like feeding that victimhood, which I think is important to bring out the feelings inside of you that's necessary in order to process it. But because that blew up, where I think 2 out of 5 people are now in therapy, and it's not like just it's like a one-off. It's like I've been in therapy for 5 years, I've been in therapy for 10 years. It's like a lifelong customer to this
Yeah.
industry now. And because of that, people no longer can process their own life, and they need someone else to navigate life for them. They need someone else to tell them about their emotions. And so we're relinquishing all of our power inside this little room where someone who most often than not has no real life experience other than what they were taught in a textbook. And not to insult them all, because I think this is some great ones, but the reality is you can go to school and study it and anybody can become a therapist tomorrow. And so that in itself is also scary, because then they can just regurgitate anything that they're learning and pull out this victimhood out of you, and then you're stuck there, and they don't even know how to navigate a lot of their lives. I know so many personal therapists and psychologists, some of them incredible, some of them have the worst life, and I was like, you never want to take advice from someone who has a leading example of how you want to live yours. And so
Yeah.
this is what I see. I see the rise of mental health issues because you're putting labels and villains in your story, but then you're keeping them stuck. So is it really helping society?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Uh,
can't tell you how many therapists have reached out to me saying, I completely agree with what you're saying.
wow. So what would your advice be if someone were seeking, if they felt like they needed therapy specifically for this, for estrangement?
I mean, if they wanted it, I'm never opposed to it. I think it has
Hmm.
to be in like a family dynamic though.
Hmm.
When it's one to one and you've got a child who's speaking to a therapist and the parent is never there to explain their side, or the parent's talking to a therapist and the child is never there to explain their side, it's always one-sided. And how do you truly repair a relationship when you're not getting all sides of the story in
Right.
order to be able to have that mutual understanding from both sides? And that's the big problem, is because communication, healthy communication, is what's lacking in these failed relationships right now. But how can you have healthy communication? I don't see a therapist teaching healthy communication. I don't see them saying, you know what, can you bring your daughter in so that we can, and some of them do, but like to have a healthy conversation. I want to hear your daughter's side. I heard yours and thank you for sharing that. I need to hear her side in order for us to really kind of be able to bring you guys together. And most often than not, though, same thing. What's therapy doing? They're both, everyone is sitting there, everyone's just talking and talking, and they're there kind of taking notes without really saying. And I think that's what's different about me, is I'm like, I'm here to tell you, tough love, exactly what you need to hear. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. Maybe that's a good thing in order for me to tell you what I think you need to hear and process. And same thing to the child. And so, yeah, like when it's just one dynamic, you're not getting the full story. And if you don't
Right.
have the full story and learning that communication, how are you really helping a like a family dynamic?
Right. So it's more of a family therapy that's needed in these
I think
instances.
so. I think
Yeah.
if you do
Yeah.
really good due diligence on a good
Hmm.
one to see how they feel about the family unit, for me, it's like, are they family driven? Are they faith driven? If so, then they're probably a good person to bring your family and then have some therapy together. I think that's very much okay, but very person-centered therapy, where now, like in college, they've got counselors there. By the way, they introduced this new term called adultism in college that people have sent me, where it's like, an adult cannot disrespect me if I'm younger. And it's like this whole self-empowerment thing is turning into the chaos that we're seeing right now.
Into
So
ridiculousness.
yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Everything needs a label. Every emotion that makes me feel bad. Like now it's like if an adult's like, well, I have more wisdom than you, I can share this. Adultism, you're looking down on me because I'm younger than you. It's like, how do you literally paint a term to everything and anything? When like I
Crazy.
would do anything to have my grandma sit with me to be able to pick her brain on the wisdom that she's got right now, not undervalue it because I have a different form of wisdom available to me now.
Yeah. There are cultures who actually embrace their elderly, right? We talk
As it
about that
should
with the
be.
menopausal women. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so there's so much to unpack here. You teach communication that lowers defensiveness and opens the possibility of connection. Now, there is and you call them standards, but there's a lot of conversation about boundaries that's out there as well. if you can give us a little bit on some common communication patterns that unintentionally escalate fear or reactivity, and maybe some examples of what types of communication patterns parents can practice instead to back that off. That would,
I mean,
I can't
that's a big
imagine a better
question.
tool, you know?
That's a big question. I'm going to try to answer that as much as I can. So the first thing is, I talked about the defensiveness. Just kind of removing that sense of defensiveness is such a big one when someone's approaching you about something. And in communication, this might sound a little bit weird, but is understanding. It's like, okay, you have to, what I see often is like, I have these boundaries. I stop feeding my child sugar. And every time they go to grandma, grandpa's house, you're feeding them sugar. You're not respecting my boundaries. I told you not to give them sugar. By the way, I hear this one a lot. And I was that mom once upon a time. But from the parent's perspective, don't argue it. Don't be like, well, what's wrong with it? Like, it's okay. We grew up to it, all of that, because then they feel like, once again, they're not being heard. Like once you understand like the basic fundamentals of communication, you start to see the pattern. Child, same thing. I don't feel heard. You're not listening to me. You're not understanding. And really the only thing that I could say about this is don't defend, ask more questions. People love being asked questions. Oh, that's interesting. When did you stop giving them sugar? Oh, what made you? What was it about that? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Are you okay if I replace it with another kind of sugar? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like asking more questions. They're like, oh, they just listened to me. Now they're asking more questions to hear more about me versus people don't ask questions genuinely the same way anymore, right? If someone comes in and I'm frustrated after work and I'm all miserable, what typically happens? Oh my God, there they go, coming in miserable from work again. And, are they not happy to be home? Like, you should be happy you're home now. Be grateful. Instead of just saying, it's not about me. I'm happy you're home. Did something happen at work today? Did you want to talk about it? No? Okay, cool. Let me know when you're ready to talk about it. That's it. Take a step back. But instead, everyone is bracing for personal attacks constantly. When you're bracing for a personal attack, you are already in defense mode. You are already not going to have a healthy conversation versus being like, I need an emotional pause right now. If I can approach every conversation saying, what is my intent? What's the outcome of this conversation that I want? Do I want to be right? Or do I want to actually have a healthy ending to this conversation? If you're going into being right, you are going to defend and argue your way through it. If you're going into saying, I really want a healthy outcome, you're not going in the same way. It's not the same energy. And that's like the basic with any conversation. So parent, child dynamic, marriage, siblings, it's like, how do I want this conversation to go?
So your
Yeah.
intent should be a healthy outcome, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, always, but you can only control yourself.
Right.
When you're having that interaction with that other person, if they are intent on showing you their boundary.
Right. But when your approach can literally change the other person's behavior. When someone who's, very aggressive and really trying to force on the boundaries and they're not getting the reaction that they expected out of you, the way that they're approaching it eventually starts to shift because they're not getting the same reaction.
Yeah.
So like I have to get specific examples to be able to give more specific, examples in terms of the help. But that's just the reality. If someone's like, you're not respecting my boundaries, tell me more about your boundaries. I'm sorry if I didn't understand. What was it about your boundaries that you feel like I'm not understanding? Clearly, I'm missing something.
Mhm.
I just, you're not respecting my boundaries. Now they sound stupid to just say you're not respecting my boundaries after you're asking these questions.
Right.
But most often than not, it's like, yes, I am respecting your boundaries. Your boundaries don't make sense to me. Da, da, da. Do you see what I'm saying? Like very different approaches where the way that you can react can diffuse the entire situation, even if the other person doesn't change. It's just it's human behavior. Like human mirror neurons means you naturally start to mimic the neurons around you. And if you're reacting a certain way, the other person's reacting the same way. And you can only operate in a certain place if the other person is not for so long before it starts to mirror what you're seeing in front of you.
But you also have to have a certain amount of self-control because you can be in a relationship with someone who you never know when to expect it.
This is not uncommon though, Joy. But eventually you get to a point that it's like, I'm sorry if that seemed rude to you. There's some people that will forever be the wounded child and just
And I
not
think
navigate it.
and part of it is just human nature. I mean, obviously, if we hear something about ourselves that we
Right.
find critical, it'll affect us, right? Until we can actually look at ourselves. But so where I was going with the next question was your work emphasizes emotional steadiness and self-leadership. And
Hmm.
why is learning to regulate ourselves often more important than trying to change the other person?
And it's coming full circle now. You guys can see it. That's a perfect example. The moment you can stop letting everybody else's behavior around you change your mood and change everything about you, it's like that is real peace. That's why when I hear people saying, "Oh, it's protecting my peace," and it's like, no, are you really protecting your pain or are you at peace? Because 100% peace doesn't exist. When you're saying, I have to protect my peace at all costs, well, the reality is life is not 100% peaceful. So
No,
how can I work on myself being so grounded and so steady in who I am and my nervous system that things will come up and bother me, but it's not taking over my entire mood and my entire life. I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. What could I do now? What could I do differently? How can I approach it? So you notice how I keep saying the what and the how, right? It's always about I'm in control on how I want to handle the situation, not I have no control. I'm a victim to this situation. And
Mhm.
so when you're really so steady and grounded, I could sit here and be upset about my mom all the time. Just this morning, anything. And I'm just like, okay, love you, mom. Hope you have a wonderful day. What am I going to argue with it because it shouldn't have happened that way? Because I can't believe she's still doing that. Like, this is not okay. What's the point? Like, it's
Uh,
just,
Right.
I'm,
Say that again about what is true peace. Just could you say that again? That's yeah.
yeah, to me, real peace is being able to get yourself to a point that you're no longer triggered and activated by everyone else's behavior around you. You don't protect your peace by avoiding all of the triggers. You protect
Right.
your peace and actually truly become peaceful by saying, I can sit in this uncomfortable situation right now and still be very grounded and okay.
Wow.
And that's what
Yeah.
people need to work towards. That's when people are like, I was protecting my peace. And I'm like, if you cannot be in this situation and still and get all wild up where that inner child comes out and you get all emotional, you're not protecting your peace. You're avoiding the situation that activates you, but that's just prolonging the work that needs to be done.
Right.
Lorraine, we got to get
Yeah.
that stitched onto a pillow or something.
Or at least in a little meme.
Something. I'm telling you. That's good
Okay.
stuff right
Okay.
there.
So
That's
time.
emotional
Yeah.
maturity. That's emotional
Right.
maturity.
It is
Yeah.
emotional maturity. It's like that emotional strength, emotional resilience, the maturity, whatever you want to call it, of just saying, and this is what society is lacking so much of right now with the
Yeah.
gentle parenting and the coddling and the painting every single thing as a label and putting names to your emotions before you actually even process the emotions is why we're seeing it more and more. But they don't realize it's like if you actually want to be happier, cool, be tougher. Like strengthen your emotional
Right.
resilience and trust me, you
Right.
will be so much happier and not just happier in the world, but with yourself. Like you're so much more confident.
I love it.
You got to teach that at a young age, or how do you? I don't know. That's
But
something
not
that we really need to
necessarily
work
because you
on.
learn it. It's a muscle.
Yeah.
It's like it's a skill.
Yeah,
You just train for it and you build the muscle for it. That's all it is. The
yeah.
same
It's
way
something
Yeah.
I
now,
think.
younger generations are going to the gym and working out, younger than ever before. Do the same thing for your emotional muscles.
That's true.
I think that's something that, as a society, we need to work at. We need to work
Yeah.
work harder on.
Well,
And what I'm
Maybe
trying
teach
to
that in
do.
school. Yeah,
yeah, and
right.
Tanya has well, we'll get into that at the end, but you do have a guide for people, right? A starter kit. So we'll talk
Yep.
about that in a minute. But I guess we'll finish up with so for parents who are listening to this right now, who may never get the response or reconciliation that they hope for, how can this work still be healing and meaningful regardless of how their adult child responds?
I first want to say, I mean, I don't think any estrangement is completely um, permanent. So I don't never
Yeah.
want a parent to lose hope. I think it's really important to just be consistent in how you are developing and how you're reaching out to the child, and eventually it'll kind of come back. The most important thing is to say, I'm aware of what it like. No one can dwell on the past. All you could say is, I know what I know now. I'm showing up differently. I'm becoming a better version of myself. If you're doing that, and as long as you're progressing, leave the rest to God. That's it. That's all you can do. You're not going to, but I also don't agree with doing nothing and say, I'm leaving it in God's hands. It is what it is. No, because then you're also choosing to be stuck and to a victim to
Mhm.
this situation and not improve yourself in order to develop. And so I really just think it's that constant progression of becoming a better person, a better communicator, a better listener, a better, healthier mood. There's so many ways that you can improve yourself and work towards that. And then you leave the rest to faith.
Yeah. So can you share with us exactly what you offer for people that might be experiencing this?
Yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
my number one best-selling course is, you said, the Reconnect Starter Kit. It's a $27 program. I put a ton of work into this because I don't believe in the whole needing one-on-ones consistently and kind of draining a bank account. And it's the perfect foundation for parents to understand what happened, what to do, how to approach it, and how to start those first steps into reconnection. And even if you're not fully ready for reconnection, I think it really shifts a lot of perspective, of I know exactly what happened, and when I'm ready, I know exactly what to do.
Okay. And we will put a link to all of your website, your starter
Thank you.
kit, and all of that.
In the
And I know
show
you've
notes,
had,
yeah, we'll put it all in there. Yeah.
and I know that you've had great success with that. You share on Instagram about some of the success stories. Do you want to share a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the one thing that makes me cry anytime I see it is the reconciliation stories. I have seen so many, and it's so incredible, hundreds and hundreds of success stories of, my whole family's home for Christmas for the first time after 4 years. I haven't spoken to my daughter in 8 years, and she wants to meet next week. Like some parents are even like, your scripts worked word for word that my daughter answered after the first one, and I don't even know what to do. And
That's
like, not
awesome.
necessarily everyone's going to get that quick of a response, but it just shows that sometimes just the parents' energy shift creates that. And I love it. Like, even upwards of 10 years, some parents are like, oh, it's been 5 years, it's too late for me. No, it's not. It's not too late, because sometimes the child is just waiting for that, and they've just gotten used to living this certain way. But it doesn't mean that they don't think about you. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they don't want reconnection in their own way. So, and I see it all the time, and I love it. Like, I had one mother who was in my private community who was like, she was going to leave the community. She just wanted to shut it all down. She wanted to give up. And I'm very much tough love. And I was like, no, you're not. You're not going anywhere. You are not going to listen to him by saying to never reach out to you again. You need to just stop with your high emotional messaging that I've told you to stop. Love you. Merry Christmas, mom. Her world exploded. Like, what? She's like, oh my, this was worth everything. I'm okay. I'll be patient now. I'm like, I'm telling you, you see the pattern between the behaviors.
Yeah. So we know there is hope out there for anybody that may be listening.
100%.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how
Yeah.
long it's been, and the only thing I do ask is, and I see it often, is not to use my videos and my content as weapons, though, because I
Oh,
do see
yeah.
some really unhealthy people
Yeah.
that weaponize my content to say, see, you're the problem. I was a great mom. I was a great parent. And it's like, that's not the intention behind it. There has to be, and I love that you guys asked about the accountability on both sides. It's not about anyone sitting in the victim chair. Not the parent is not the victim and the child is not the victim. We have to get ourselves out of that.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Go check her stuff out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before you go, though, Joy has some questions for you. We like to finish our episode with just a couple of
Of course.
questions, personal questions for you.
Sure.
And so shoot, Joy.
Okay. So, whenever we're lucky enough to have somebody like you on the podcast, we do like to ask some of these questions just so that you can share your personal philosophy with our
Hmm.
audience because we find great value in that. So, number one, if your 80-year-old self could whisper something to you right now, what would she say?
Hmm. Enjoy every single moment, because when I'm my 80-year-old self, I'm going to wish that I had exactly what I have right now. Again,
That's good.
when I think
I mean,
about my
yeah,
kids, when I think about work and everything like that now, it's so easy to say, like, I'm reaching for the next thing, I'm doing the next thing. But
Right.
I often do think of when I'm double my age right now, I'm going to look back and say, I just wish I would give up everything just to have those days again.
Yeah.
yeah,
To be present. Mm.
yeah. I was just
Very.
thinking that. Be present. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, number two. I don't really think you look like you're in midlife, but I'm going to ask this anyway. As you have gotten a little bit older, you're a mom now. What is your midlife superpower, the thing you never realized you'd be this good at?
Emotional healing. How much of our emotional healing is tied to our hormones, to our health, to our ability to have healthier relationships, more confidence, everything. Like that emotional healing component is, and I felt like part of me knew this. And like I said, I think I was gifted with that innate knowledge because I think I'm a vessel of God's message. But that alone could improve so much of your health. It's unreal.
Mm.
Okay. Very good. All right. And finally, number 3, what's something you've stopped apologizing for?
Being so blunt.
I
Anyone who
figured you
knows
were
me
going to
knows
say something about how you communicate. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I now, I think because I'm still a very straight up person, um, I don't apologize for it anymore. I will apologize for how it made someone feel, but not for my behavior necessarily, unless I
Yeah.
actually, did something to hurt somebody. Um, but yeah, like I am me. I'm unapologetically myself
Yeah.
now.
And actually, your bluntness is what attracted me to your Instagram posts.
So many people say that. If it wasn't for
Yeah.
your bluntness, if it wasn't your openness and how you show up, and even if you're being attacked and it's a polarized topic, I'm like, that's literally what I do. I don't know how to not be honest, or I'll sit there and like fidget and get all weird, and you could tell something's up with me because I just need to say it.
No, it's so real. It's so, your
Thank
content is
you.
so real. Yeah. So everyone listening, you need to go follow Tanya on Instagram, visit her website. And if you need to get her starter kit so that you can help the
Thank
healing
you.
process in your families.
Yeah. And I'm Tania Khazaal across the board. TaniaKhazaal.com, Tania Khazaal on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tanya, for being
Thank
here.
you guys. I know it
Yeah.
ran deep. I know it runs really deep, and
No, but
sometimes it's a
this,
little bit,
it's important,
a
important
lot, but
information. Yeah.
I
it's
loved
it's
it. It was
profound. It
great.
really makes people rethink a lot of what they've,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks for
Wow.
having me.
Yeah. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Of course,
Yes.
you're very
And
welcome. It's a pleasure.
such a great episode. And please make sure you check out the extended version of this episode on YouTube. And please give this episode a like, a share, send it around. You probably know someone who can benefit from this
Mhm.
information.
Yes.
So check Tanya's content out, use her products, and yeah, let's all try to just be more emotionally mature and happier and healthier all the way around. So again, thank you all so much for listening and supporting us. We really appreciate it. And stay tuned for more interesting things and information about our upcoming retreats this year.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks
Yeah.
again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mwah.
You all know we love sharing things that actually support women in this incredible stage of life. And we recently had Atessa Bradley, the founder of Standing Tall Foods, on the podcast. And we love what she and the brand stands for. Plus, we have tried the product and can vouch for the fact that it is delicious.
Right. And Standing Tall makes seasoned, roasted soybeans crafted specifically for women in midlife. There are 3 delicious flavors: sea salt, chili lime, and salt and pepper. Each dry roasted to crunchy perfection. Unlike others, Standing Tall soybeans are premium, non-GMO, and sourced in North America only. And guess what? The nutrition is no joke. Each serving has 12 grams of high-quality protein, 2 grams of fiber, no sugar, and no cholesterol. Soy actually has twice the protein and half the fat of almonds.
We love that. But what we love most is the mission. Standing Tall exists to lift women up in midlife because we deserve real solutions, real nutrition, and real support.
Soy consumption is clinically linked to bone and muscle strength, heart health, fewer hot flashes, and improved skin elasticity. Soy is incredibly good for us. Standing Tall wants to make it easy for us to take charge of our health so we can live long, vibrant, and strong lives. If you want to try it, use our exclusive code, Girlish Gurus Get 15 for 15% off your first order.
We think you're going to love it.
For sure. Thanks for listening to this episode of Girlish Gurus. We hope you'll join us next time for more fun and inspiration. Be sure to check the description of this episode for links and information about the topic, and you can find us on our social media platforms starting with Instagram, Facebook, and now including YouTube. You can find us by searching Girlish Gurus, and you can also check out our website, girlishgurus.com, for more information on us, our projects, books, and our growing community.
And don't forget to download this episode, give it a good review, and share it with your girlfriends. We would also love to hear from you in the comments because the more interaction we get, the more episodes we can post. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.